welcome to the first recording of the internationally known $2 Sports Podcast. I want to welcome in my co-host, Uncle Buck. This is Buckets here, joining you live from Murrells Inlet, South Carolina. But want to give a quick shout out to our listeners and downloaders, whether they're pirates or actual people or not, in Brussels, Belgium. Thanks for tuning in, guys, over there. Uncle Buck, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I did get on there and look to see what our download numbers looked like, given the fact that we uploaded our first live podcast in real time, and just kind of see how we were doing. And I was impressed, for the number. We've been giving this out, for a few weeks to our friends that are in the fantasy football league with us. So the fact that we had a few more than just the fantasy football league was encouraging to me. And I looked and it said 2 international listeners from Belgium. And I was like, well, you know what that means? My World Cup talk is resonating with the folks of the world.
That's the only
The
thing
Belgian
it could be.
people. What do you call the people from Belgium? Are they like Belsh? What?
Belgians?
I don't know.
I think they're just Belgian, I think.
We're just going to call them the Belsh people.
I like it, the Belsh.
And hopefully, if they were offended by that, we will have 2 fewer downloads next week.
Yeah. Next week, we may not be the international podcast.
Yeah. And so not only are we an international podcast, but we're a podcast that goes on the road. Rusty is recording from his home in Murrells Inlet, South Carolina. But I have decided to come track down all the loose ends in the Deion Sanders story. And I'm recording from a hotel room in Ridgeland, Mississippi.
Yeah, when we found out about Deion leaving, Drew just could not wait to get down there to find out what the scoop on the ground was. There's a lot of videos of some upset people, and Drew had to go get what word on the street was. So what you hear down there?
Yeah, up until we started the podcast, I did not consider myself an investigative reporter, but now I feel like I have a duty to all of our listeners to get to the bottom of this and to see what's going on here in the metropolitan area of Mississippi. And I'll be honest with you, I've been down here for about 24 hours now, and nobody has mentioned the word Deion Sanders to me yet. So maybe it's just not resonating where I'm going.
Yeah, you need to broaden your circle. Keep digging, man. You never know what you'll turn up in Jackson, Mississippi.
We'll ask around at the restaurant tonight. We'll keep everybody posted on our social channels.
Yeah, absolutely. And if we get any more breaking news, we can do a weekend special Deion tracker, Deion update, and let y'all know what the vibe is after he left.
Boy, wouldn't that be something for us to break something just based on a work trip to Jackson in our first month of podcasting?
Yeah, that's how you get famous, man. You get those hot scoops. You find out who that next Jackson State coach is, and next thing you know, you're right next to Dave Portnoy and those guys.
Yeah, I didn't get into the podcast game to get rich or famous, but I'll take either.
That's it, man. Yeah, I had a patient this week. Asked him how he was, and he said, I would have rather been born rich than handsome, but here I am. And so hopefully this podcast can get us to that, Drew.
Yeah. So, well, let's get into it this week. One thing that we were talking about earlier, and we're gonna get to sports. That is, we are a sports podcast, and we will get there. But we were talking off the air earlier about Christmas and how I don't know if it's because I've got kids now, but I'm no longer a wait till after Thanksgiving for Christmas type guy. I don't know if it's being Santa Claus or what it is, but around the middle of November, I start getting that itch, and the lights are going up on this outside of the house, and we're going to get the Christmas trees down, and then I will stomach Christmas music starting then. And then about this time is where I'm initiating the Christmas music.
Nice.
And so we just wanted to take a few minutes. Rusty, I was curious, when it comes to Christmas music, what's your jam? Do you have one?
So I got a couple. It depends on what's going on. I am kind of the opposite. I just got my Christmas tree put up last night. All the lights on it. It's decorated. Here we are, December the 7th after Thanksgiving.
Yeah. 19 days till Christmas, and you are ABC Family is already doing the 25 days of Christmas and well into it when Rusty gets his tree up.
Absolutely, man. Better late than never, right? But I got it put up last night. I don't play a ton of Christmas music in the clinic until a little bit closer to Christmas, but I do have a few songs. And I think the first one, especially like it's great for a nightcap. You get home from a busy day at work, you pour yourself a little brown liquor, get settled into your robe, maybe get a little pipe going and have yourself a Merry Little Christmas by Frank Sinatra is probably one of my favorite, just easy listening Christmas songs. It's just a classic.
Yeah, I mean, you really set yourself up for a 1960s home there with your robe and cigar and brown water.
That's what I was going for, man. That's the vibe of that song. So just trying to set the vision for our audience on Spotify podcast.
I've heard of mood setting music, but I didn't picture Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas to be that. But go by all means. This is your list.
Yeah. Number 2, Frosty the Snowman, but specifically by the king himself, George Strait. Can't go wrong with the king of country music. Very classic, traditional, just fun Christmas song. Frosty is one that takes me back to my childhood, and always enjoyed that song.
Yeah.
A couple more. Run, Run, Rudolph by Chuck Berry. It's upbeat, nice little beat to it. And I always think about the scene in Home Alone where they're running through the airport trying to catch the flight and before they realize how terrible of parents they are, leaving poor Kevin McAllister at the Chicago airport, which brings up the other question, like, what did his dad do to be able to afford that house and a vacation for 9, 12 people to Paris? Like, miss my calling, whatever that was.
It's, there's a whole side of life that I just will never be able to compute.
Yeah. That's a tax bracket I don't understand, but
yeah.
Anyway, rounding out my top 5 are Carol of the Bells by Trans-Siberian Orchestra. That just slaps, man. It's a good beat.
It's on my list. It's on my list.
Yeah.
It is. It's a banger. Let me tell you.
Absolutely, man. And it's what we play when we work out at the gym for our Christmas workouts. It's a great song to listen to. And then finally, went with a little comedic value for my last one. It's nostalgic because my dad and I had the cassette tape in his 1994 Ford Ranger. I know it's before your time, Drew. The Redneck 12 Days of Christmas by Jeff Foxworthy. Just a classic, funny Christmas song. One of my favorites. Takes me back to being with my dad. So yeah, it's my top 5 Christmas song.
Yeah, that's we shared on Carol of the Bells. When I was in high school, when I moved to a different school my junior and senior year, I jumped into the chorus. And if you know me, I'm not a singer.
Nope.
I have played music, but singing it it's not my thing. And the chorus class for Christmas, we did Carol the Bells. And we had so much fun doing that because we would go around the hallways and like me and all my buddies who didn't sing, who just joined the class for fun, just got to yell nonsense for like 4 minutes.
Yeah.
We just basically our job was to go ding dong. So, you can imagine it got off the rails quick, but we had a fun time. You listed 5 songs, but you didn't list the GOAT of Christmas songs, and it is All I Want for Christmas Is You by Mariah Carey.
That's the reason.
We were in the mall shopping on Sunday. My wife and I's anniversary was Sunday, and so we did some Christmas shopping. And I kid you not, every single store we went into, All I Want for Christmas Is You by Mariah Carey was playing.
Absolutely.
And it never got old. It never got old. It's solid. It makes her millions of dollars every year, and she's earned it. I have nothing more to say other than it's perfection when it comes to Christmas music.
It's something.
Yeah. Another one, Where Are You Christmas from the Grinch.
Yeah.
It's the best country music is sad country music. And this is like in that vein. And I don't know why. A lot of this stuff with Christmas music, I can't tell you why I like it.
Yeah.
I just like it.
Fair. That's fair.
Rocking around the Christmas tree. Sorry,
Yeah.
I'm gonna not flip over here. Rocking around the Christmas tree, and you you were talking about comedic value. I remember when I was a kid, Larry the Cable Guy was huge, and he did his redneck Christmas jingles
Yeah.
like "Hark the Hair-Lipped Angels Sing" and Silent Part. It's stupid. It's cheesy. I don't care. I don't care. I laughed then, and if you made me laugh as a kid, that automatically translates to an adult. I don't grow out of
Absolutely.
things that I thought were funny.
Yeah.
You could add to this list Santa Claus is Watching You by Ray Stevens.
By Ray Stevens. Yep.
Yeah.
Solid.
If you haven't heard that one, go give it a spin.
Mm-hmm.
It's a Christmas tradition in our house that my grandmother had the VHS of all of the Ray Stevens tracks and music videos. And we spun those at Thanksgiving to start off the Christmas year. And all of them. The Streak, Mississippi Squirrel Revival.
Me Again, Margaret.
It's a 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
And I would absolutely recommend that. Get on YouTube and watch that if you haven't yet.
Mm-hmm.
So, Rusty, take us to some sports now.
Yeah, so we're going to start adding in a little segment on just some breaking news in the sports world these last couple of days. So, that's right. You know that tone when it goes off on your phone.
It always makes that noise when you don't need the phone to be making any noise.
Absolutely. It's always when you forget to put it on silent in church or at the doctor's office or wherever you are, that thing will ring out, man. Never fails. But today's first breaking news hits home for a couple of us as Titans fans. It looks like a couple things. First of all, Amy Adams-Strunk fired John Robinson, GM for the Tennessee Titans. Interesting timing. It's kind of mid-season, coming off of an ugly loss to a good Eagles team. I don't know, had A.J. Brown not been the major culprit in that. Drew, if you remember, he was a draft night trade that Mike Vrabel was not a fan of. If you've seen the video, he gets up and storms off when the trade comes through because he had just said the Tuesday before that as long as he was the coach of the Tennessee Titans, A.J. Brown would be a Titan. Well,
right.
John Robinson made sure that didn't happen. Anyway, A.J. absolutely torched the Titans this weekend. He's been the GM now for 7 years, probably one of the best GMs the Titans have ever had. 7 solid years, drafted Derrick Henry, Jeff Simmons, Kevin Bayer, like some good pickups, but, took a couple risks, trying out Julio Jones. Bud Dupree didn't work out. Bud's going to get cut at the end of the year. Tried Vic Beasley. Those didn't work. And then just a big whiff, man, with trading A.J. Brown, thinking a rookie receiver would replicate his production. And all A.J.'s done is gone on to have a career year in Philly. So I think after the press conference on Tuesday, Mike Vrabel marched into Amy Adams-Strunk's office and said, it's either me or Robinson. I can't build a winning football team. And big shout out to Amy Adams-Strunk for showing some stones, man. She made a very strong statement that she's behind one of the best coaches in the league in Mike Vrabel and let John Robinson walk. I think it was a power move. It was a good move. But breaking news, John Robinson is out in Tennessee.
Yeah, I was telling our buddy Zach yesterday on my drive up that, first off, to call me a Titans fan is probably would be insulting to like true Titans fans. I'm a Saints fan from birth. I've struggled. Ultimately, I do pull for the Titans. And if I'm being honest, my fandom for the Titans took a hit when they did trade A.J. Brown on draft night.
Sure.
Because I am a massive A.J. Brown fan from his time at Ole Miss. He left the dark side. He left Starkville, Mississippi, and chose Ole Miss, and he was incredible while he was here. Mm-hmm. And when he got picked up by what is the most local of teams for us in North Mississippi, the Titans, I tuned in, and they were must watch for me because he was incredible, and he still is incredible. And what I told Zach yesterday was that to me, the firing of a GM at this point of the year did seem very, I don't want to say emotional, but it was very reactionary. You just don't see many GMs fired at this time of the year. Mm-hmm. And for it to happen the way it did with playing Philadelphia at Philadelphia and A.J. Brown catching 3 touchdowns against you. And then I don't know if you saw the clip, but all the Eagles fans turning around and yelling at the owner's box
Yeah.
or at the owners in the owner's box, just basically thanking them for trading A.J. Brown to them. It was humiliating. And the GM there, he hasn't been bad. Like you said, he's made good moves, especially on defense. The one you didn't mention was Harold Landry, who's incredible.
Oh, yeah. Huge get.
And they've always been good, but they've never – last year they were the number 1 seed. But to me personally, they never felt like they would need to play perfect and have to have a team like Kansas City or the Bengals, who they ended up losing to in the playoffs. They would have to not play their best. They were the 1 seed, but they were not the best team in the AFC.
Right.
And then from that team that was the number 1 seed that lost out to the eventual Super Bowl runners up, to take that team and to subtract the best player and then ask a coach to say, okay, well, this is your team now, and you didn't really get anything back. I think they may have gotten 1 more pick, and then Treylon Burks, who I love Treylon Burks, but to ask any rookie receiver to be A.J. Brown and to be a number 1, it just was never going to happen this year. And so I understand that Vrabel was frustrated. It was embarrassing. And maybe it shouldn't be a reactionary business, but props to the owner of the Titans for making a move for the future, because a lot of times in these small market, I know the NFL does have a salary cap, and so you've got to be smart with how you mortgage your roster. And to pay A.J. Brown stupid money does mean that you're going to lose on other positions. But if you look down the standings of the NFL, every one of these teams that are competing have stud receivers. It's no longer, you need a running game-ish, but it is a receivers league, and it's a quarterbacks league. And your quarterback is fine, but he's really bad without weapons.
Right.
He's not Aaron Rodgers. Yeah, he's not Aaron Rodgers, who can elevate all ships, but you're going to have somebody there for him to throw the ball to, and the weapons on the outside are just not there. And, you said that Bud Dupree will get bought out. Tannehill's going to get bought out. So they're at a crossroads going into this next offseason, to where they can let Malik Willis, and they don't have a lot of draft capital in him, so they can let him kind of see what he's worth, but they don't feel with a 4th round pick. I think he was a 4th round pick. You don't have that draft equity in him to where you feel like you've got to stick with him too. So shoot, right now, I mean, I think next year you go in it and you give him a shot, but then go and try and make those moves to try to get you competitive with the top tier. You're going to have to be a little risky, and I'm all for teams that are on the cusp of, on that 500 line, or 6, 7, 8 seeds, to do what you got to do and push all your chips in.
Yeah. And Drew, like, you're right. He made some good decisions, but the other thing that's going to hurt, AJ was the second best player on that team. It's still King Henry's team. And, he missed on Isaiah Wilson from that tackle out of Georgia that was just so bad and lazy, and he had injury issues, and we knew that, and still drafted him anyway. And he's done nothing to improve the offensive line. Taylor Lewan will be gone at the end of the year. He's another contract that'll get bought out, and you just don't have a solid left tackle. And without that protection, like you said, Ryan Tannehill's a fine quarterback, but he's not going to go out and win you any games, especially not without a number 1. And who are we going to go get now? I mean, like you said, it's a receivers league. Everybody's, tied up and locked down. It's some bad. And unfortunately, I think it's more of a power move by Mike Vrabel than it was a reactionary move by the brass. stepping up saying, this is my team. I'm one of the best coaches in the NFL, and you're handicapping me with this current structure. And then number two, it's a what have you done for me lately league. Like, he's made some great draft picks in the past, but the last 2 or 3 years in the draft and trades and again, letting AJ walk, just some bonehead decisions, and they were risks. They just didn't pan out.
And Vrabel probably had the clout to do that now, because I
Yeah.
don't know if you've seen the names about the rumors swirling. We talked last week about Ryan Day at Ohio State, and if they don't, there's a lot of fans that are wanting him out. Maybe he's a good coach, but maybe he was born on third base thinking he hit a triple. And if that's the case, Vrabel's the Ohio State guy. He could be an easy sell to that fan base. If you want to get rid of Day, then let's go get this guy, and it could make that transition easier, make that move easier for Ohio State. And so, given that, maybe the owner thought this, killed 2 birds with 1 stone. You make him happy, and you also kind of get, earn his trust, to stay. Because if this thing kept going the wrong way where he didn't agree with moves, then it makes it a lot easier for him to go take a step into the college area and see how he can do there.
Where they will worship him, the pressure, even like Ohio State, the pressure is a little less than NFL. It's close, but it's a little less. And an opportunity for him to go take over a good football team, I think he would have just excelled. So I guarantee you Ohio State came up in that conversation at some point. Right. But anyway, so that's first breaking news. A couple injury updates from the NFL. Von Miller had surgery for a little torn ACL. It's going to be on the shelf for the rest of the year. It's going to change a little bit of that Buffalo pass rush.
Yeah,
their defense is still good without him, but
and Von Miller's one of those guys. I'm pretty sure he's bionic too, because he's torn an ACL before. And he's nobody. For me personally, I never really think that, like, eventually he's going to take a step down, but he hasn't yet. So maybe he comes back and he's just as good next year. But it's a blow for that pass rush, because he is still elite. And he is a game changer at defensive end if he's healthy. And so they're going to have to figure out a way to get to the quarterback now without him.
Jimmy G avoided surgery. He did not have the dreaded Liz Frank injury. It looks like just a midfoot injury. So thankfully he's avoided surgery. There's a slight chance he could come back for a late playoff run for San Fran, but for now it looks like his season's over, and we're officially going to see what happens with him in the offseason. They got Trey Lance that's going to take over this year. Oh no, it's Brock Purdy. It's the Brock Purdy show right now. That's right, baby. The Iowa State all-time passing leader.
Right.
He was the first Mr. Irrelevant to throw for a touchdown in the NFL, and so we'll see how deep he can take that team. But curious if this does any change.
It's a real shame, because who should have been the first Mr. Irrelevant?
Don't say it.
If that vacuum cleaner hose didn't get swung, Chad Kelly would have been
Machine Gun Kelly, man.
You're talking about, how lives have changed based on that. You got to think. Yeah. Denver's probably coming off of a Super Bowl, and Chad's getting a massive extension, and Russell Wilson's still in Seattle. If he don't walk into a stranger's house and whoop somebody, get whooped with a vacuum cleaner hose.
Moving right along, speaking of bad quarterbacks, Baker Mayfield is now a Los Angeles Ram with Matt Stafford still on the shelf. I think they don't think he's going to be ready in time for this weekend, but it looks like Baker's going to get a shot in LA.
Yeah. I think I'm one of the last folks that are on the Baker train. I haven't jumped ship on him. I hadn't jumped ship on him before this season. He's been unquestionably bad this year.
So bad.
I thought in Cleveland he probably got wrapped up with they had to choose between him and Odell, and somehow both of them got shipped off, It's all in perspective and what you expect out of Baker. Baker he's always been a vocal leader, and he was somebody that if you're on a good team that resonates, and he can inspire people to follow him. He's not a Super Bowl winning quarterback on his own. Like we were saying with Tannehill, like they're fine, they're good, but he's got that charisma that could lead a locker room. However, if that team is bad, like he's also going to be the guy that's the first one to get punched
Yeah.
because he is abrasive. And
Right.
if it's going the wrong way, it doesn't work as well. And what he's been in is Carolina was a dumpster fire this year. I
Still
mean,
is.
yeah, they fired their coach midseason.
Mhm.
The coach lost the locker room. Baker came in, and everybody thought he'd be fine. It
Yeah.
turned out he was awful,
Yeah.
and he's going to another dumpster fire. Really,
Yeah.
the Rams won the Super Bowl last year. Man, they have been partying ever since. they, they have taken the flyer on this whole season.
They
Just
pulled a
been
Mississippi
bad.
State baseball and just checked out for the following whole year just to enjoy that victory lap.
Yeah, man. I hope
Yeah.
you all enjoyed it because
Yeah. Anyway, again, moving right along, wrapping up with our news. A little news coming out of college football today. The giant killer Jeff Brom has turned a job at Western Kentucky into a pretty good stint at Purdue. Is now heading to the ACC, going to coach the Louisville Cardinals. I think this is a solid move for both parties. He's a Louisville grad, spent some time there as a GA. I think it's an opportunity for him to go home. And I mean, the proof's in the pudding. He made Purdue that team, that the Big Ten, that everybody kind of double checked on their schedule as giant killers. So I think it's a good move for both parties.
Yeah, I mean, you looked in at the Big Ten championship game last Saturday, and you saw Michigan, who is really, really, really good,
Mm-hmm.
and you saw Purdue on the other side, and you weren't just like, well, that's a win, and it turned out to be they handled them pretty easily. But there's
Mm-hmm.
a track record there with Purdue that they were
Yeah.
always going to get your best shot. They were able to circle a football game and say, this is the one that we care
Mm-hmm.
about and that we're
Yep.
going to make known. And Jeff Brom single-handedly keeping the XFL alive.
Yep.
Former quarterback in the XFL.
Yep.
I'm sure you've seen it. If you haven't watched it, get on YouTube. Watch the hit that he took in the XFL, and he got right back up. Got the reporter's mic. So let's play football. So bringing some grit, and it's a fit. He was really, really good at Western Kentucky before he got that Purdue job. I know that he was who I wanted Ole Miss to hire when he went to. I guess that was Luke, and they went to Luke, got emotional and went to Luke instead that year that he took the Purdue job. So I think it'll be fun.
Yeah.
And I feel like they stumbled upward because Satterfield has not been good at Louisville, and he took that Cincinnati job.
Yeah.
Scott Satterfield started at App State, and he kind of built App State back up. And they're the new Arkansas State, I guess, because you got Satterfield left and went to Louisville, and then next was Drinkwitz, who after a year went to Missouri.
Yeah.
And so,
yeah,
maybe everybody got better. I'm not sure, but I like Louisville's hire for sure.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's a good move for the direction of that program. But speaking of college football, we're going to spend some time talking about bowls a little bit. So we're going to do some weekly previews coming up of the bowl games that are coming up. And Drew, I know you got a hot take on bowl games, man. Go ahead and lay that on us before we dive into the college football. Whether we think they got the playoff, whether they think it got it right or not.
Well, my gripe is not with the college football playoff, except for kind of how it affected the rest of it, and it's only going to get worse because overarching, I think bowl games are wholly more boring now. Like, I can't get hyped up for a Cotton Bowl that just means that this was the next two teams that didn't get into the playoff. And the reason why is because those teams, every time you get one of those, like for instance, in the Sugar Bowl this year, you've got Alabama and Kansas State. And when you have situations like this, Alabama is not going to care. Kansas State is going to run them. And now McCaffrey started it with the whole opting out, and teams like Alabama that recruit these and have these huge draft day presences for the NFL draft, these guys just aren't going to play. And so, given the fact that you've got four teams that are competing, which I think the playoff is great. I think those 3 games are bowl season for me because the rest of them I just don't care about.
Sure.
The the 2 New Year's Eve games, the playoff games, Michigan and TCU, Ohio State, Georgia. Those are great games. I will tune into them. I'm going to be invested. I'm actively looking forward to them. But the rest of them, it's just the bowl games have just become an opt-out fest, and good for the kids. If you feel like you're risking a huge payday by playing in a meaningless game, then do your thing. I don't blame you for making a business decision, but that's what these bowl games have become now. Is they're just business decisions. And
I don't necessarily disagree. I hate a lot of the opt-outs. I agree. I think I think the 2 games are, the Alabama K-State game. I think the Tennessee Clemson game is going to be very similar with the transfers that are happening out of Clemson. And motivation is key. Like K-State's their first New Year's Six since 2013. They're going to want to make a statement against Alabama. It's not going to be your traditional Alabama game. Although Nick Saban traditionally doesn't lose on, regardless of whether, it's a bowl game or not. They beat the crap out of Michigan State in a bowl game not too long ago. That wasn't a championship game.
Well, that was the first round of a playoff game, but
no. They played them after the 2010 season when they didn't make the championship and they beat the crap out of them in a bowl game. So it happens. I agree. But then you've got smaller games. We're going to talk about a couple in a minute. One of the ones I want to watch, I think Western Kentucky, South Alabama will be a very entertaining game. I'll get to that in a minute. But you can get some opportunity for some teams like that for some showcase. So I don't necessarily hate bowl season. It's just extra
bowl season. Bowl season is important for those teams, I guess. Mm-hmm. But I just don't. I don't know. I feel like an old curmudgeon a little bit, but it's hard for me to get excited about. I'll just be personal with Ole Miss. I'll just talk about Ole Miss, and if you want to talk about that ball game first, I know it's on your list.
Yeah, that's fine. Go ahead.
We'll just start with that. Ole Miss started the season hot. They finished cold, and then you've got these hopes of being, an access bowl, maybe backdooring into the playoff if you win your last 3 games, which, we've talked about this. It just kind of went sideways for the whole team. But then you tell me that we're playing Texas Tech in the Texas Bowl, and I couldn't be less inspired about it. I'll get there. I'll watch it. It'll be a bowl game. It'll be my last chance to watch Ole Miss until next Labor Day. And I'll watch it. But, man, it's not there for me. And when the playoff eventually expands to 12 teams, it's going to be even worse because it's going to take out the importance of regular season games. We've killed the bowl games because of, opt-outs and teams just it's all about what team gets motivated to play, which team cares. And then you go to 12 teams and now you don't even care. 9-3 team out of the SEC West is going to make the playoff every year. So you don't it takes that gravity out of every single game that was so great about college football in the BCS era when there was only 2 teams, but even now, with a 4-team playoff, it just seems like it's kind of just taking the air out of the bowl season.
I can see that when when the team you root for is in such a pitiful bowl. I can see that. Where that takes out some motivation. So the next
quick trivia question: what is ReliaQuest?
It's the former Outback Bowl. I know that.
Oh, okay. All right.
It used to be the Outback Bowl. It's played in Raymond James. Yeah, we'll just kind of transition there. I mean, I hear you. It does. It's tough in some of those non-bowl games. I think 12 teams is going to be great for college football. We'll kind of get into some of that here in a few minutes, but I think there's a lot of good that's going to come out of that. But I see your point. It's a fair point. But yeah, Mississippi State's got a fairly tough draw in the ReliaQuest Bowl, playing one of our good buddy Lauren Massey's favorite college football team, the Fighting Illini from Illinois. Illinois is kind of like Ole Miss, man. They started hot. They were 5-1, and then limped to the finish line 3-3 over their last 6. Both of us are sitting at 8-4. It's a bit of a rematch of some sorts. One of your favorite all-time SEC head coaches is the current headmaster at Illinois, Brett Bielema. And I know, Bielema, you're excited to get him in know you're excited to get him back in a football game.
Well, don't get me wrong. He had Ole Miss's number when he's in Arkansas, but I am 100% for him
he's
in
the
the
dog, man.
hold on, the ReliaQuest Bowl.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I can't even root for Mississippi State for a free blooming onion anymore. Like, what's the point? Like, at least if State won this game last year, maybe they got a blooming. Could go get a free blooming onion. But now what do I get? Like a home loan quote or something? This is garbage. Nobody cares about this game except for State fans and Illinois fans because what? I mean,
yeah. I mean, it'll be a good game. Illinois' defense is good. They're one of the best in the Big Ten, but they hadn't played an SEC offense, all that. I think it'll be a good game. It's fun, extra football. I mean, like you said, it's my last chance to watch the Dogs till Labor Day, so I'm not going to be a curmudgeon, Clint Eastwood snarling, get off my lawn face. I want to enjoy some college football while we got it.
Oh, I'll enjoy it. What do Illini fans chant? I got to come up with that.
I don't know.
ILI or something? I don't know. But anyways, I'll talk with Lauren. We'll get matching jerseys or something. I'll shave my head to match him. And we'll root for the Illini together on that game.
Yeah, and a couple more bowl games, I'm kind of excited to watch. I think the South Carolina Notre Dame bowl game, talk about two motivated teams. Both of them started off the season really poorly, but finished hot, man. Notre Dame righted the ship under first-year coach Marcus Freeman, 4-1 of their last 5, and their only loss was to USC by 9 points, who finished in the top 10. They beat Clemson like a drum. And then we all know what South Carolina did. We've talked about it on this podcast a few times. Spencer Rattler finally looked good. One of their tight ends entered the transfer portal, though, Austin Stogner. Not that he was getting a ton of minutes, but he came with Spencer Rattler from Oklahoma. But I think this could be a good football game. Two hot teams looking to go out on a win. That's the Gator Bowl. I think that could be a good game.
Is that in Tallahassee? Where's the Gator Bowl?
Is that
or maybe it's Orlando.
I think it's Orlando.
Either way, whoever
Jacksonville.
Okay. Whoever made that decision, won that bidding war to get South Carolina to the Gator Bowl is the MVP because they're going to drink that city dry.
Absolutely. And it's only like 3 hours from here.
Yeah. And so you're talking about motivation being the key factor in who wins and loses bowl games. Yeah. There's no more motivated fan base than South Carolina right now. And Notre Dame, they righted the ship after a week 1 loss to Marshall, and they're fine. Mm-hmm. Again, I'll be rooting for South Carolina. I think it's fun. I think they're fun, and Notre Dame still is the entrenched elite, that everybody likes to root against, and I'm part of everybody.
Yeah, same, man. I'm all in on the Cox, man. So Shane Beamer, go get a win for the SEC there. The next one is another rivalry renewed a little bit. Florida State, Oklahoma in the Cheez-It Bowl. Florida State's playing Brett Venables, who had their number at Clemson. But Oklahoma is not the same team as those Clemson teams. They've been inconsistent. They're not a great football team. I think they've got potential because they've shown up in some games and then they've been really flat in others. And I like what Mike Norvell is doing in Tallahassee. I think Florida State is pointed back in the direction of those glory days back when Bobby Bowden was there. They're not there, but they're heading that way. I think this will be a good football game, but one that I think Florida State can win again because the motivation is there to continue the momentum that they have.
Right. And Oklahoma's in a weird year. Lincoln Riley left that cupboard bare because he cleaned out his house and put every player that he wanted in his U-Haul with him when he headed out to LA. Yep. And so I'll give Venables a little bit. Now, it's going to suck for him because not long after, he doesn't get a chance to really rebuild before he gets to the SEC. It can't be a long-term rebuild, But props to Florida State for sticking with Norvell, though, because Florida State fans are Class A lunatics, and they were ready to fire him after year 1. Yeah. And Norvell is just a good coach. He continued to build a program that Fuente left in a pretty good spot at Memphis, and he took them another level up into they played in the Cotton Bowl, Peach Bowl. Either way, one of those access bowls is the best. Yeah, against one of those as the best group of 5 school. And
Mm-hmm.
that cupboard was bare too. Jimbo left that job at a bad spot.
Mm-hmm.
And so props to the administration for weathering the storm of those crazies in
Yep.
Tallahassee to stick with him, because he's going to turn it around now. He was the guy that I would have wanted Ole Miss to hire if Lane had gone to Auburn.
Sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they finished second place to Florida State for Norvell, because it was Ole Miss went hard after him and Florida State went hard after him, and he chose Florida State,
Mm-hmm.
and worked out for both parties. But I'd have given him another run if Ole Miss had another vacancy this year.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's good to hire for Florida State. I think he's got him heading in the right direction. Yeah, excited about that game. And then lastly, I mentioned it earlier, one of those under the radar. Nobody cares about these teams. I get that, but they're former Sun Belt rivals, now in different conferences: South Alabama and Western Kentucky in the New Orleans Bowl. South Alabama won 5 games last year, and then next year they're one of 4 group of 5 teams with 10+ wins. So they went 10-2 this year. Their 2 losses. They lost to UCLA by 1 point, and they lost to future conference champ Troy 10-6. Both of them early season losses. Played some good football. Western Kentucky, man, they throw the football all over the place. It's in a dome. It's on turf. There's a lot of speed there. I think this game could be a high-scoring, fun kind of game. This is definitely one that I want to tune into.
Yeah, and the only thing I can add to this, because I don't know anything about either of these teams other than the fact in his first season as head coach, Kane Womack at South Alabama has done a great job. And he
Absolutely.
was a former Ole Miss assistant and the son of Dave Womack, the offensive coordinator at Ole Miss.
Yep.
And that under Freeze that was, had that lightning offense with Chad Kelly. And so
all comes back
props
to
to
Chad
him.
Kelly.
All roads lead back to Swag, man.
Let's get out of here.
He's good.
All right, Drew, we've talked about the bowls for a little bit. I kind of want to get your take. We've talked about it a little bit, but I think this is always an interesting exercise just to see what we think it would look like if the 12-team playoff started this year. So for a reminder, it'll look a little different than what the playoff looks like, because what they do is they're going to take the 6 highest rated conference champs and then the 6 highest rated at-large teams. So like you said, it could be some extra SEC schools. Based on this year's, there would have actually been 3 SEC in the top 12 taken into the college football playoff. So we'll kind of dive right into it. First game up, Tennessee, Kansas State. I think it's an interesting matchup between a solid Tennessee offense that scores points by the bunches and a stubborn Kansas State defense that played good football, that stepped up when they needed, and beat TCU. So what's your take, Drew?
Out of those games, the first round games that we've looked at between Tennessee, the first round would be Tennessee, Kansas State, and then TCU versus Tulane, Ohio State versus Penn State, and Alabama versus USC. That was the game that I thought would have been most exciting.
Yeah.
Now, Tennessee has Joe Milton, and he would be their quarterback in this situation.
Mm-hmm.
That would be fun. I love a scrappy team. TCU, it's funny that TCU and Kansas State were playing each other for the Big 12 championship, because I kind of those teams have always been the team that have upset the apple cart in the Big 12. Yeah. When it gets upset, those are the 2 teams. Yep. Colin Klein, I don't know, you remember Colin Klein?
Yes, absolutely.
Those Kansas State teams were so much fun, and the TCU teams, the 2014 TCU team that won the Big 12 55-3 over Iowa State, only to get left out of the playoff.
Yeah.
And then I remember this because then they went to the Peach Bowl and just beat the ever living crap out of Ole Miss.
Yeah, they did. They were
42-3. Just drubbed Ole Miss because they were pissed. Talking about motivation, they were pissed. And so I root for those teams. I like seeing those teams get a shot at it, and it's the reason why I'm glad that the playoff committee left TCU in at 3, because that was a war, and the loser of that game should not have been dropped.
No, I agree.
And if anything, Kansas State showed that, man, they were the real deal too.
They got some moxie, man. They that goal line stand where they stop. I mean, for some reason, TCU decided that they weren't going to run with Duggan anymore, who had taken them all the way down the field and tried to hand it off to the running back that had been stopped all night. But big goal line stand there by that defense, man. That was fun to watch.
So yeah, that would be a fun game. The next one on the list, you've got your token group of 5 school in Tulane versus TCU. Again, I like that matchup better than I would have liked Tulane versus Michigan. It'd be fun. Willie Fritz is going to stick around and see how far he can take this thing and see what kind of job. He wasn't too thrilled, I guess, with the Georgia Tech job. So he's going to stick around and see what he can get next year. They're good.
Their defense is really good, man. They fly around. They swarm to the football. Their quarterback is tough. I watched them play Cincinnati in that last game of the year, and it was just a street fight, man. And they showed up, played good football, like you said, man. Like Tulane had been relevant since they were in the SEC back in the 50s, and they went 10-2 this year, played really well. Solid football team. I think they give TCU fits. I think. From our first game, I think I don't know that Kansas State could beat Tennessee even with Joe Milton just because of the firepower in Tennessee's offense. But I wouldn't put it past Tulane to upset TCU. I agree. I think that would probably be the second best game of all the games that we have.
And to put a bow on Tulane, quite possibly the best uniform in college football. Definitely top 5, quite possibly the best. Yeah. That pale blue they do with the Angry Wave logo on the helmet is incredible.
Man, when and that was kind of their throwback this year. They wore them all year long. They looked awesome, man. Big fan of that for sure. Winner of that would get Utah in the second round. But other first round game, Ohio State, Penn State. We've seen this story, man. We've seen this song and dance. Ohio State, Penn State. James Franklin gets to the big game, and then they just play out. I don't think Penn State would have a shot in this game. Ohio State would be coming off of a Big Ten title game loss where they got embarrassed, and all the talk about Ryan Day. I think that they would come out and just absolutely mollywop Penn State. I just don't think this game will be close.
Yeah. Yeah, you're probably right. I don't really have any takes on Penn State other than I don't know how many years of eligibility Sean Clifford has. It seems like he's been there for a decade.
Yeah. It's just like it's the same situation with Stetson Bennett and Lamar Jackson. They're born the same year. Lamar Jackson won his Heisman, what was that, 2016? And he's been in the NFL, and Stetson Bennett's still playing for Georgia. So he's been there forever.
I know they've been the punching bag this week, the Heisman committee, whoever. I guess they just tanked the highs. So many
that was wild, man.
Vote getters, and it's not a shot at Stetson Bennett. I don't know that he should necessarily be the one that should fall on the sword, but Hendon Hooker did play 10 games at a Heisman level.
Absolutely.
I hated this. It seemed like it was short-sighted. It lacked the grasp of the full season because you kind of forgot about him. Like, okay, well he's there now. He's not playing anymore. So, but for the season as a whole, man, you got to give that dude his props. And he would have never won it. And obviously he didn't because he also didn't finish in the top 4 in voting, but he should have been in there.
Yeah, I agree. But
that's on the voters.
Yeah, absolutely. Hendon Hooker was definitely the Heisman winner this year. He got hurt. If he plays a 12-game season, I don't think it's close, even with their losses. I don't think it's close, man. I think he was the best player in college football for the 10 games he played.
Yes, I mean, if you can't really take away one of the losses for Tennessee, but if you take Tennessee's 10-2 year and compare that to Caleb Williams' 10-2 year with that ugly loss to 2 losses to Utah, that's close. And Stetson Bennett was given a career achievement award by being invited. It was one of those things. It was, he was never the best quarterback. He was never had the statistically the best quarterback, but he was given a career achievement award.
Yeah,
by
he's not
Heisman
going to win it.
voting.
He's going to be there, but the pride of Jones Community College is going to be there. Former Bobcat got Hendon Hooker's invite when it shouldn't have been that way. But anyway, coming full circle, Ohio State, Penn State. Winner would play Clemson. I think we both agree be Ohio State. And then finally, Alabama, USC. Again, just kind of a blah game. Nick Saban always shows up against USC. I think they played them twice and just beat the brakes off of them both times. And the winner of that game would get Michigan. No real hot take there, but I just don't think USC would have the firepower to keep up with Alabama.
Yeah, the winner would lose to Michigan, whoever
Absolutely.
it is. Alabama's got holes. USC's got holes. I'd probably lean Alabama, just because honestly, despite the fact that Caleb Williams is going to win the Heisman, Bryce Young's the better quarterback. So,
absolutely. Yeah. And Nick Saban has them ready for those type games. And this is USC's first time. Nothing else, just experience.
Right.
That's just kind of another game.
Yeah.
All right.
Let's get into some Grizzlies talk. Since the last pod, they're 3-0 with some really fun wins, including a win on Monday night against the Heat, in which I think they dressed maybe 7 players.
Yeah.
There's no Ja, obviously no Bane, obviously no
Trip.
Zaire. Trip sat out. No Conchar, no Laravia.
And the Heat had 2 days of rest and their entire roster.
Yeah. And so they were in Memphis before Memphis was, because Memphis was coming back from Detroit.
Yep.
And so they were in Memphis while Memphis was playing Detroit. So, it was a really, really fun win, because the Heat, the record doesn't show it this year. But Kyle Lowry struggled, but they're a team that's built to last, and they do it every year. They're physical. They wear you down, and they peak at the right time. So maybe a win versus an 11-12 Heat team at your place doesn't look good right now. I promise it will.
It will.
Because
absolutely.
Jimmy Butler is still that dude, and it's a solid win. And honestly, it's a good matchup for the Grizz too, because the Grizz, the Heat are small, and so the Grizz were in a series. You would kind of like it a little bit better because we could go big. We didn't have that opportunity this time,
right?
But it's a good.
Yeah,
it was a solid win.
Solid win, like I said. That's a good roster. That's going to be a deep playoff team in the East again, like they were last year. You know, they're a good team. But I think it just highlighted our brass's intelligence and his too. That man, Tyus Stones Jones, man, 28 points, 5 rebounds, 10 assists. Keeping him, if it was one of, if not the best move in the offseason. Just, sure enough, Ja was a good one. But man, keeping Stones was a huge move, because it's a brilliant move for him, because he's not good enough to be the guy, but he could probably start on 8 or 10 NBA teams. But he's got a great complementary role to a superstar, and he's going to make a ton of money and then have games like he did against the Heat. Great game by Tyus, man. He was fun to watch.
Yeah, and he said in that post game, he said, "I feel like I am a starter." And the reason why Grizz culture is a real thing.
Absolutely.
I believe we've touched on this. You look at some of the best teams of all time, and you look at the teams that you want to emulate. And the best example is the Spurs team, because that's the team. Yeah. That's where Taylor Jenkins cut his teeth. He's a Pop guy. Yep. He's a Budenholzer guy who was right under Pop for the Spurs. They've built this team, and Zach Kleiman deserves a ton, if not all, the credit, because you look at how he's managed the lower part of this lineup. You don't have to worry about culture from the players that are in the rotation, but you worry about the culture by the guys who aren't playing, if they can remain bought in and they're not being distractions. It's the guys at the end of the bench. And what Kleiman did is he's taken Tyus, and he's like, "Listen, you can go do your thing. We're going to take care of you." The players trust him. He's like, "We're going to take care of you, and we're going to give you this 2-year deal, and we'll be honest with you." And they've bought in. And he did the same thing with Kennedy Chandler. Kennedy Chandler, who slipped to the second round draft night, former 5-star stud out of high school, had a great year. He slipped in the second round, and he could have been salty because he's looking there, and I know that he looked and he saw that Tyus Jones is coming back for 2 years, and he's now not the backup, but the third string.
Yeah.
But what did Kleiman do to get him to buy in? He gave the largest contract to a second-round pick in NBA history.
Yeah.
You take care of your guys. You don't work. You let the money take care of itself, but you take care of them as people,
Yep.
and they buy into your culture. And you do that with the right guys who also fit basketball-wise.
Yep.
And you get what you're getting now. And
Yeah.
it's 2 years in a row. Last year was not a fluke without Ja. That they were incredible. And this year, it's just a system, man.
Yep.
And
if we just get healthy, we're going to be dangerous.
Yeah, and Steven Adams said last year, he's like, why does this work? Why does it matter? Does it not matter who's playing? And Steven Adams said, I'm not going to give the accent because I'd butcher it, but he said it's the system. You plug and play. Everybody, the system is the system was the quote that he said. And it's a good system. And so that's coaching and that's buy-in. And that comes from your leadership on your team, your leadership on your coaching staff, and being able to take care of your folks by the front office taking care of your players. It's just a class act.
Yeah, I agree. And you got solid minutes from Kennedy Chandler last night, against the Heat. He had he was plus 18 on the floor. So we were 18 points better with him on the floor. He took advantage of his minutes, played some solid defense. It's fun in games like that. You hate to be missing your stars, but to get to see young guys play like that and see the future looking bright. And, speaking of that win over Detroit, Drew, is the same thing. Like, that team's going to be good. They've got some future stars in Jaden Ivey and Sadiq Bey. John,
they're going to be good. They're not going to be good this year. Not until Cade Cunningham gets back.
Right. But they've got some
Jaden Ivey is fun. He is fun. Yeah. He's got to figure out and refine some things. But he's explosive.
Yeah, and Sadiq Bey was first team all rookie last year. He's got a sweet shot. Ja was fun, man. I know you tuned in for that coast to coast dunk, but he had 21 points in the third quarter by himself. 33 against the Pistons. That was a fun game, high energy game.
And not just 21 points in the quarter. It was 21 points of absolute circus shots. There wasn't an easy shot on that. It was if you drop somebody in, if you just took that third quarter, handed it to somebody who'd never watched basketball in their life, they would say, well, that's the best player that's ever played the game. That's the quarter that he had.
He hit that three from the time stripe. He had that. It was a Tony Parker in my lifetime was the most efficient at circus shots. I've seen him hit more sideways and upside down shots than anybody except for Ja Morant. And Ja had that one underhanded sidearm shot that he just threw in on the foul.
They both were incredible at finishing under the goal. It's true.
Yeah. So, absolutely. Big props to Ja and a couple nice wins. We played a night here in a little bit.
And the big news from tonight is Zaire's back.
Yeah, it's his first
He's making his debut tonight.
He took the word right out of my
mouth. David Roddy has been a lot better lately, and just in time for Zaire to come back so that you can kind of hold your tongue for a little bit.
Hey, listen, he did have a big block. That block at the end of the first half against the Heat was clutch. They drove down for a layup to try and get cut into the lead a little bit. He had a monster block. I give props to David Roddy. He did get better as he went, but I am so grateful that Zaire is going to be back and get those minutes back because that's been rough.
And expect some lumps early on, but it'll
sure.
He'll get it back. He'll be good.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's set the stage for the League of Avengers playoff. I know we've got that settled now. I picked a bad week to lay an egg and get absolutely just dominated by Zach. But Drew, give us your thoughts on the League of Avengers playoff situation.
Yeah, so of the top 4 seeds, there was Rusty, Lump, Aaron, and Patrick. Those 4 seeds went 2-2. Rusty lost, and it gave up the 1 seed because Lump got the win. Aaron won, and so he stayed at the 3 seed, which made the battle for the 4 seed just as tight as can be. And what ended up mattering of the 4 seeds, Patrick picked just the worst time. As I talked to Zach yesterday, and he had kind of consoled Pat, and Pat said, "Well, My guys just never got off the bus, and that's what happened.
Yep.
I don't believe he broke 80 in a week that was make or break. And so couple that with the fact that Zach put up 165 points in a win in which you needed to win points for because Zach Mutters both won. So whoever got the points for was going to get that 4 seed, and Zach took it and snatched it and just ripped the throat out of everybody else that he was tied with.
Yeah, especially my hapless fantasy football team that got the late week buys or late season buys. So I think
if you look at this week's matchup, man, it kind of sucks for the 4 teams that are in it, or for 3 of the 4 teams are really missing some players based on buys this late in the season.
Yeah, man. I've got Jonathan Taylor out, which is just mind-boggling that he's going to be out this late in the year when I absolutely need him the most. And so I tried to pick up Cam Akers off the waiver. I bid $20. Thought that was going to be good. And my opponent beat me to him by dropping $42 in our waiver pickup.
Hey, man, if you're depending on, on Cam Akers.
That's where we're at, man. I've got AJ Dillon, David Montgomery, and Jonathan Taylor all on buys. So I'm starting Jerick McKinnon from Kansas City, hoping he can get me a receiving touchdown or at least some receiving yards. Otherwise, man, it's the cupboard is bare this week.
Yeah, I was looking here at see kind of how everybody was affected. Just like you've lost all your running backs, Zach lost both quarterbacks with Rodgers, and he has Mariota on his bench, both on bye. Who he has chosen to fill his spot with is Brock Purdy.
Oh, right.
Week 1 of the playoffs, you're starting Brock Purdy.
Yeah.
And then Aaron's just had a rough go of it. You've caught a good team to go up against. If you're competing with buys, and he is starting Isaiah Pacheco and Leonard Fournette at running back. It's just a Darius Slayton in his flex. I mean, it's just a hard time for him because the only one he's got on bye is Christian Watson, who has been solid lately.
Yeah.
But
I'll say, man, I'll give him credit. He has definitely worked his team, and the fact that he's even in the playoff with some of the teams that some of the players he's got, like it's a terrible team name, but he's worked that team pretty well.
What do you think? What is protocol, in your opinion, for if you are eliminated from the playoffs on working the waiver wire? And given the fact that this is not a league in which there's a punishment for the last place, because if there's punishment for the last place, I'm all for going for whoever you want to avoid that punishment. But
I think it adds another element to it. You got to worry about these sharks that are sneaking out there that can come dive bomb the waiver wire, and I think it puts a little more strategy into it. I don't hate the idea.
The reason why I ask is I don't mind people being competitive, but I got bit in another league. I'm the 4 seed in my family league, and my mom, who we're trying to teach fantasy football to, dropped Joe Mixon last week.
What?
And so I'm the 4 seed. So of the playoff contenders, I would get the first pick off the waiver wire.
Yeah.
And one of those non-playoff teams came in and swooped him up, and I had missed out on it.
No.
And I was so mad this morning. My brother-in-law just came in. They live in South Carolina. I may send you over to his house and teach him a lesson. But he came in and just plucked what was rightfully mine out of my hands.
Yeah. So we'll see. We've got it's a 2-week playoff, so we'll see what breaks out over the next couple of weeks, and I think we'll revisit next week, kind of see where we're at, and keep an eye on the League of Avengers as we go forward. So, Drew, any final closing thoughts? Any burning anything you want to get out there?
Man, I'm gonna tell you what I'm about to go do. I'm about to go hit the streets of Jackson, Mississippi, searching for information on this scandal in Jackson, Mississippi regarding Jackson State. There are rumors going out that Jackson State as a university really fumbled the bag here. And if basically one of the reasons why Dion left is because they offered him a raise, but this whole time they've kind of been having money come up missing. And so they offered him a raise, like, please stay, here's $1 million a year. but you're going to have to pay your assistant coaches out of this. And like, I don't know, it's shady, but I'm going to go do some research at a local restaurant that's got good food. And, but the reason why I'm going is not because of the good food and drink. It's because I'm doing my job here for the podcast.
That's right, man. Getting the legwork in. Well, listen, guys, thanks for making it this far. As always, please give us a like, a follow on Spotify or wherever you get your podcast from. Share it with a couple friends, get word out there about the $2 Sports Podcast, and we'll keep bringing you hot international sports news.
Yeah, that's $2 Sports Podcast, the number 2 on Instagram and Twitter. Oh, and let's put a bow on something. We didn't get to do it this week. It's totally slipped my mind. My World Cup minute.
Yeah.
This weekend, the United States fell to the Dutch. Just beat us pretty good. And it was, Rusty, did you watch it? Did you do your civic duty?
Nope. I kept up with it a little bit, but I didn't watch it play for play. No, I was keeping up with it like a Gamecast.
It was pretty humiliating for the United States to go down so early by a goal from a fella named Memphis.
I didn't see that.
That just felt like a special gut punch.
Yeah.
And then right before halftime, in stoppage time, going into halftime to have a cheap goal, give up to basically we got a goal early on in the second half, but to give us a chance, but we were just outmatched. And so now, what do we look forward to? Does the United States play a regular season soccer thing? I mean, who does the United States? Do we have to wait till the next World Cup?
Yeah, I don't know.
How do I watch soccer?
That's a good. I don't know. It's not like they're in the SEC where they can come play, but
do they play in the Olympics?
I don't know. I keep my soccer knowledge to a minimum, but
I guess soccer's dead now in the United States, which is kind of how it operates 3 years and 11 months at a time. It's exactly. Other countries' sports.
Exactly.
So we will take it back over in 4 years, but I don't really know how to root for them.
Yeah. So if you're tuning in this podcast for the soccer minutes, we'll see you in 2026.
Yeah. Well, and please stick around because I do like to talk about American sports that you could adopt. People want Americans to adopt the soccer, a love for soccer. Yeah. Let me take this time to encourage you to try out college football, and we'll keep you in the loop.
Nothing better.
Real football.
Yeah, the real football. All right, Uncle Buck. Thanks, buddy. We'll see y'all back next time. This time next week.
Bye.